Hi, I'm Greg Hunter. This is the weekly news wrap up, the WNW 230 for Friday, March 11th, 2016. Iran is back in the news, this time for test firing ballistic missiles. And written on the side of the missiles, and let me read this quote to you: Israel should be wiped off the earth. It's making Israel just a little nervous. Now, this is also widely reported that it test fired two ballistic missiles, and they say it was a show of defensive power, a deterrent power, and that it is a defensive. The UN, scolded them over this. But might I point out in this deal that I want to keep telling you, there are no signatures on this Iran nuclear deal. Nobody signed this. Not the State Department, nobody in Europe, nobody signed it. And now people in Europe are opining and complaining that they don't really have enough information about them curtailing their nuclear program. But that said, listen, the UN scolded Iran for testing missiles, but there's nothing in the deal that says they can't test the missiles. And Iran says it's really just a defensive and also showing deterrent power. Also, to be fair to Iran, that this was an official saying on the side of the missile that says Israel should be wiped off the earth, but that is the official idea in Iran, all the way to the top, to the Ayatollah Khomeini, that he thinks that Israel should be gone. Wrote a book about it, too. So, there is no signed deal. And also, there is nothing in it about them testing ballistic missiles. This one they tested went just a little short of 900 miles, and it is making not just the Israelis, but everybody else in the Middle East, the Arab world. You have the Sunni and the Shia. Iran is Shia, and the Sunni nations, which are about 85-90% of the population, of the Muslim population, they're nervous as well. So this doesn't really add to the peace trajectory in the Middle East. I think just quite the opposite. Meanwhile, North Korea is doing some saber rattling and missile testing of its own. This week, its leader, Kim Jong-un, announced that it miniaturized nuclear warheads. I guess maybe he's bragging about a tactical nuke that he could fire into South Korea. I don't know. Also, with all this, tension and all this, incendiary language, North Korea got a new round of sanctions put against them. And North Korea, in response to that, threatened to, quote, liquidate, end quote, South Korean assets. Now, this has got a lot of people on the South Korean peninsula in South Korea a little nervous, and where they are behind the scenes, and some politicians openly talking about changing the law and allowing South Korea to acquire what else? Nuclear weapons. So this is, it makes me nervous. I mean, some people can write off Kim Jong-un as a little spoiled brat, and he keeps, talking about the things he's going to do. But their missile program is advancing. Their technology is advancing. And at some point, he may do something to say, oh, really, you don't take me seriously. And may do something. Now, I can't hardly imagine that, there's supposedly we used to have nuclear weapons on the South Korean peninsula, and we took them off, and there's also talk about moving them back on, but I can't imagine that the Navy doesn't have a sub or a missile cruiser or something off the South Korean coast or on both sides of the peninsula where they could answer a North Korean attack, but they continually are firing projectiles in the direction of the south into the water. They are continually making these incendiary statements about how they can attack, or their country is on, their missiles are on standby. It's just very nerve-wracking. And you never can tell when somebody's going to make a mistake or somebody's going to decide to show them, particularly in the north. So it just appears to me to be, very unsettling. And I wanted to bring up one more thing in the Middle East, or while I brought up the Iran there's some things in the Middle East that are just horribly maintained, like the Mosul Dam. Samantha Power, the UN ambassador, tweeted out that she says that the dam, according to the Army Corps of Engineers, has big cracks in it, and because it's so poorly maintained that you could have a calamity. In no time that could happen that would put 15 meters of water in downtown Baghdad in a few hours. What is that, 16, 17 feet of water? That would no doubt kill tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, displaced millions in the matter of hours. So just, there's all kinds of things going on that, around the world, but that's one in the Middle East. That's just add insult to injury in the Middle East. In the Syrian situation, which they have some ceasefire going, but unless one of the parties completely quits, Saudi Arabia and Qatar and all the Arab countries backing ISIS and Al Qaeda, or the Russians and Hezbollah and Iran just decide, well, we're going to give it up to you. I don't see how that the peace, the ceasefire holds long term. Now that they can even have a peace deal, we shall see on that one. But I wanted to bring up the MSM. And listen, Trump is taking it from all sides. I mean, it's outrageous. Here's one that just came up this week. I mean, talk about yellow journalism. This is like, how often do you beat your wife, Mr. Smith? Well, I don't beat my wife. I mean, another Hitler? How a world leader see Donald Trump? Oh, that's it? You take that seriously? A maniacal mass murderer that's responsible for tens of millions of deaths just between the Jews and the Russians. That's about 30 million people. 6 million Jews, 23 million Russians. That's just those two groups. Hitler's responsible for that. And you're comparing a guy that built buildings and killed no one to Hitler? Outrageous. Outrageous, yellow, slanted journalism. Outrageous on the front page of your news story. Maybe some quote that by somebody might be appropriate, but that's your headline. Boy, do they ever hate on this? They're worried about him. They're worried about Donald Trump. He's making a claim that, Democratic voters are going to vote for him. And you know what? I think the Democrats know that is true. I'm always surprised when Trump does get some even, coverage, and this is just to be fair. Trump sweeps big states. This is past week. He won Michigan and Mississippi and Hawaii. Cruz won Idaho. But, I'm surprised, just really surprised. That's how often slanted and one-sided it is. Here are my little local fish wrap, a little communist rag. This is the News and Record, that's what I call it. Here we have Bill Clinton at Elon College. I'm looking at him, a big smile on his face, and there's probably a few hundred people there, not tens of thousands, not thousands. At Elon College, and the headline is Clinton, Trump stumped for votes. Oh, that's okay. That's not so bad against Trump. Here's the headline on the front page for Trump in the same protester ejections. Trump rally in Concord. This is Concord, North Carolina, north of Raleigh, south of Greensboro. Protester ejections. Trump's rally in Concord. Not thousands and thousands of people showed up, while a former president and some people say a serial rapist, only a few hundred show up, and they crush the shot in there to make it look like it's packed. And here they won't even take pictures of the crowd. I saw this on local television here. Trump saying that, ejecting the protesters and saying, well, I'm kind of glad the protesters are here because that's the only time the mainstream media will take a shot of the thousands and thousands of people in the crowd. I mean, here they rent out a stadium, they get a venue, they rent it out, and then you have these protesters feel like, well, it's my right to go in there. That's like you going to a Yankees game and trying to walk on the field because I want to protest the Yankees playing the Red. You don't think they would throw you out? But that's the headline. This is the subtle yellow dog journalism. Some positive thing, front page with a few hundred people with a former president, and then some negative thing, with the front runner, with thousands of people coming to every rally, and it's protester ejections. Trump's rally in Concord. It's just really outrageous. Just outrageous, slanted yellow journalism. It's they want to say they're unbiased and they're objective. Of course, as soon as they say, well, yeah, we're biased and we're not very objective, we hate Trump, then they're not a news organization anymore. They're just not. What they don't cover is another one where, for example, that Jorge Ramos, they had the big Democratic debate, Bernie Sanders, Hillary Clinton, a big bore. Except the anchor / journalist / activist, Jorge Ramos at Univision, asked Hillary Clinton about her email scandal, and of course she comes out and says, well, they were retroactively classified. That's totally bogus. According to the reports I read, no way. I mean, there's classified, there's top secret, there's also special operations stuff that could put people at risk. I mean, really super, top secret and highly classified material. And some things are what's called born classified. You wrote it. You don't have to put classified on the top. It's just classified. She had more than 100 of those that she wrote herself and sent out. And please, folks, remember, this is a private server. And Jorge Ramos asks her, well, if you're indicted, will you drop out? Clinton, it's not going to happen. And I'm not going to answer that question. Well, that's a legitimate question considering that the staff member that set up that private server just got immunity from the Justice Department. Well, that means he's testifying somewhere. That means there's a grand jury somewhere. And you know what I think about the whole Clinton thing? This is just the email server, right? This is just the private server, totally unprotected. Nobody who had the server, none of the people at the cloud, nobody has a security clearance. It's completely unprotected. And this is, forget about obstruction of justice and lying to investigators and perjury and mishandling classified and top secret information. Forget about all that. Under the Espionage Act, there is gross negligence, which is a felony. That you acted so grossly negligent that, that's just a felony. You're just stupid. And here she's got a private, unprotected server. Nobody touching it, has a security clearance. Unbelievable. And then nobody covers this little exchange, which I thought was the big exchange of the night. I mean, here you have an atheist, socialist, activist asking her, actually being a reporter, and saying, if you are indicted, will you drop out? She said, it's not going to happen. And I'm not even going to answer that question. That's not covered anywhere. I mean, that's what I do. I analyze the news. That's my slogan. I analyze the news, give you a clear picture of what's going on. I found that very few places, and certainly not in the mainstream media, that little exchange. This is not on Fox News. This is Univision who hosted this, Univision Washington Post. I mean, that's the elephant in the room. Here's another thing that doesn't get covered. I've seen Donald Trump, the night he won Super Tuesday, he said Hillary Clinton shouldn't even be allowed to run. What she did was criminal. I brought this up before. No, but what a statement. Here is the front runner talking about the other front runner in the other party, saying they shouldn't even be allowed to run. Nobody's going to ask her about that. Oh, hey, listen, Donald Trump said that you shouldn't even be allowed to run. What you did was criminal. What do you say about that? Nobody's even going to ask her that? I mean, isn't that just journalism? No, we can't make her look bad. That's our person. She's a crook, but she's our crook. It's outrageous. It's obvious. Also, Donald Trump said that if he's elected, and she's not indicted, he will indict her. But I don't think he'll have to do that. Listen, I think the Obamas, well documented, as I've said before, they hate her. This thing has really progressed. I can't imagine the FBI coming out and going, "Oops, just kidding." We've given people, the Justice Department has given immunity. We've done hours and hours of work. We've had 100, 150 agents working on this. Oh, we didn't find anything. The Obamas hate the Clintons. There's no way that President Obama, and he's not a dumb man, is going to turn over the Democratic Party to her, turn over the White House, which has the keys to the IRS and the Justice Department and the FBI. There's no way he turns that over to Hillary Clinton. Not after the big bombs that got dropped on her head came from the Obama White House. No way. No way. And I'm not sure the economy will even hold together either. I want to come to the next thing, the economy. And it involves a former Fed president, Richard Fisher. But before we get to that, I just want to show you how the media is continuing to, they've kind of stopped with the recovery story. Now they're changing their tact. And here we go. Pitfalls threaten the bruised market. Okay, yeah. But here's the subline, and really the story here is that stocks have struggled in the past year, well, actually the past few months, but some say there's still room to grow. There's still room to grow. I just, when I read this, I thought, come on in, sheepies. I mean, and in the face of some pretty dreadful evidence that, China, this is Andy Hoffman over at Miles Franklin, who's a regular guest here, said, had come out with a story this past week about how the economic data, went from bad to worse. The bad data got worse, which is year over year, China's exports are down 25%. This year alone, they're down 13%. This is China. This is the engine. This is the engine run of the world. China. They're manufacturing everything, and that's going down. And here we have, and I'm going to get to Richard Fisher here in just a minute. This is going to lead me in here. Here we have, they're talking about how, hey, well, 7-year bull market makes investors $16 trillion richer. $16 trillion richer. And I've been telling you there has been no real recovery, and there really hasn't been a recovery. All the money, floated up to the 1%, to the rich people, and little guys are making less money now than they ever have, statistically speaking. 94 million people no longer counted in the workforce, even though we have a sub 5% unemployment rate. Well, when you stop counting enough people, you can make the unemployment rate, you can make it 2% if you want, if you just stop counting enough people. 94 million people no longer on the work rolls in a country of 320 million people. What is that? A little less than 1/3. 1 in 3 don't work. How are they living? And so Gregory Mannarino talked to me today about the ECB thing that happened this week. The European Central Bank was going to shoot their bazooka, right? It's going to vault everything higher. Well, dud. They went from 60 billion a month in QE, money printing and euros, to 80 billion a month. They lowered rates another, 5 basis points, negative VIL. That just means that we're in trouble and your money's worth nothing. Also, that they're buying all kinds of bonds, sovereign bonds and corporate bonds. They're bailing out everybody. Wow. I thought that we had a recovery. And the European Central Bank, pulled that, and boom, the markets went down. Bank stocks sold off. The European banks are in big trouble. So are the U.S. banks. We're going to be finding out next week when the Fed meets whether or not they're going to be hiking rates. You keep hearing this stuff about, we're going to hike rates. I keep hearing this stuff this past week. It was unusual that, recession's off the table. There's no sign of a recession. They're going to be hiking rates. No, they are not. And if they do, you're going to get some more tanking in the economy. That is for sure. But as I said, I'm going to get back to Richard Fisher here. There is no recovery, no real recovery. We didn't invent the internet again. We didn't invent cures to cancer and Alzheimer's, and don't have productive assets and people going to work in new industries, and we got Obamacare and 29-hour-a-week work weeks, and people trapped in their parents' basements because they can't get jobs. So on CNBC. And I went and looked this up, made sure I got a good copy, a CNBC copy. We had Richard Fisher, former Dallas Fed president, and he was asked, do you think central banks still have power? Richard Fisher, former Dallas Fed president, who was in on QE1, QE2, voted no on QE3. He's very quick to point out to CYA that, I voted no on QE3. Here's what he says. You got to take this is Richard Fisher. This is, I think the power is running its course. We injected, listen to this, take this in. We injected heroin and cocaine into the system, and now we are maintaining on Ritalin. We injected heroin and cocaine into the system, and now we are maintaining on Ritalin. He basically admitted that the Fed created a giant Ponzi scheme. The dopes on CNBC, well, how much did it go up? And he's, Richard Fisher is saying, 2.6 times, over 2.5 times. He's saying that, the markets went up. So it went up just because you injected heroin and cocaine into the system. Now you're running on Ritalin. This is the guy that said, a few weeks ago, we front-loaded the system to create a wealth effect. This is fraud, folks. This is not a real economy, folks. This is, don't take my word for it. Listen to Richard Fisher, former Dallas Fed president who was around for all the fireworks. We injected heroin and cocaine into the system, and now we're running on heroin. He is basically admitting to a fraud. And I want to point out my friend Gregory Mannarino, who's also a regular guest on this channel, a couple of years ago was talking to me about this today, saying, you know what that means? What they're doing? They're saying the money's worth nothing over there. It's worthless. It means the system's over. Mannarino's telling me this. He also points out, he says, remember when we said that, when I said that this Fed QE, this Fed action, this tonic is going to turn into poison? Well, it did. They announced this big, from 60 to 80 billion a month QE, and boom, the market tanks. Manarino says, they tried to pull another rabbit out of their hat and they pulled out a skunk. So, Manarino thinks right here, right now, this whole thing is rolling over on the charts. Yeah, you're going to see maybe 100 points here, 200 points there, ups and downs and whatever. But, the trend is decidedly going down. Richard Fisher, I can't believe he said, he even surprised himself. We injected heroin and cocaine into the system, and now we're maintaining on Ritalin. If you have money in bonds and stocks, the phrase that just jumps into my head is run, Forrest, run. That's the way I see it. I'm Greg Hunter. Thank you for supporting USA Watchdog with your comments and your donations. That helps us out. Remember, fear not. Prepare yourself mentally, physically, and above all, spiritually. God the Father is in control. Fear not.